So, wow, such a lot of people. That's wonderful. Well, you're all very lucky as well because we have several people from Tsubame Sanjo here with us this afternoon. So I know that you are going to hear about knives, but we've also got the son of the man who makes the hose with us as well. And we've also got the people who make the magic metal. So there are all sorts of things as well. Please feel free to ask questions throughout. What I'll do is I'll tell you a little bit about what it is, first of all. We'll go through and I'll explain the context of it in the first part, then we'll enter into the main part of the exhibition. I'll show you 3 or 4 highlights of the exhibition, not everything, and of course of those will be including the hose and of course the knives as well with the people that we have with us from Tsubame Sanjo. So, it's called Biology of Metal, if you've all got one of these. If you haven't, there's some on the left-hand side when you go in. It's called Biology of Metal, and this was resulting in a trip I made to Tsubame Sanjo this time last year, in October last year, to see what they call the factory festival, the Koba no Saiten. The Koba no Saiten, the factory festival, is like our London open house where you can go in for a weekend to see buildings which are not usually open to the public. Of the 4,000 metalworking factories and workshops in Tsubame Sanjo, they open about 100 of them for a long weekend at the beginning of October. So you can see single occupancy workshops all the way through to mass production metalworking factories. I was impressed by this whole event as a form of social enterprise, I suppose, as well, and also by way of the branding. I thought that was extraordinarily interesting. You will see that some of our friends from Tsubame Sanjo are wearing t-shirts, are wearing this pink stripe. Now, this pink stripe t-shirt is used for the branding for Koba no Saiten, and also all of the factories and the workshops that are taking part have the pink tape all over their buildings, and it helps them identify. And at first happened 6 years ago. This is the 6th year. Everyone's a bit shy about wearing pink striped t-shirts, but now they've embraced it completely. And pink is the colour of Tsubame Sanjo, as you can see. And that comes from the colour of the flames from the forge. And we'll see that when we go in. Just one word about the title, The Biology of Metal. When I went there, it reminded me of when you see the tools laid out in the workshops by the craftspeople themselves. They reminded me of specimen boxes in, say, in the Natural History Museum of different different insects or whatever, all lined up. And you'll see that probably reflected in the exhibition. But also how everybody, it's an organic festival, everybody gets together, the whole of the community, in order to support the industry that supports them in Tsubame Sanjo. Okay. Without further ado, let's go inside. I'll tell you a little bit about the exhibition first, in the first part. So I worked. As I mentioned, the branding was quite important. This is this year's brochure for Tsubame Sanjo's factory festival. As you can see, the pink stripes are there. So when you go to the factory festival, you can see where to go, the different factories to go to. We've got some from last year on the end there, which you can have a look at for reference. So I worked with some designers called Spread. They're a husband and wife team who did the branding for this, and I wanted to bring their branding in a way to this exhibition. And what they wanted you to see, first of all, is actually behind you. And it's this 14-meter long photograph of the flames from one of the forges in Tsubame Sanjo. Those flames are that colour. It hasn't been photoshopped in any way. They are pink. It's the flame that's at the beginning of the forging process. And this represents, just as the exhibition does, 400 years of tradition of metalworking in Tsubame Sanjo. And it's 400 years we're talking about. And this After I went there, I was an anthropologist once upon a time, not a very good one, I don't think, but tradition was one of the things, one of the canon, part of the canon of the anthropologist. And this reminded me, after visiting the Korbanot site, and that Gustav Mahler, attributed to Gustav Mahler, he said this: tradition is not the veneration of the ashes, but the passing on of the flame. And that tradition is in fact something that's alive. It's not the thing. We're not trying to fetishize the artifact as such at the end of the process, but it's the process, and it changes, and everything moves, and sometimes those flames are very strong, and sometimes they're almost extinguished, and I think that's all part of the story, and we'll see that inside here. That's about the exhibition. You don't need that. You've got me. This is a map of Japan. Some of you may be very familiar with Japan. If not, bear with me if I don't tell you enough. If you were to superimpose Japan onto a map of Europe, this would be about Stockholm. And this would be about Gibraltar or Tangiers down here. It's very long, very thin, with a great variety of climate throughout Japan. Tsubame Sanjo is in a prefecture called Niigata, bang in the middle of Japan, on the border of the Japan Sea. Niigata in Japan is very famous for its, or well known I should say, for its rice growing at the moment. And as a result of being known for its rice growing, it's also very famous for its sake. But 400 years ago, this wasn't the case. This is Tsubame Sanjo. This is the blow-up of part of Niigata Prefecture. You will see this river, the Shinano, running through. The Shinano River is the longest river in Japan. It floods, or it used to flood quite a lot before they were able to harness it. 400 years ago, the people of this area were not able to grow rice because of the river flooding. And so they needed a way of supporting themselves. And the way they did that was through the metalworking industry. Of course, you can't just think we're going to do metal. They needed the technology which came from Aizu, which is in present-day Fukushima Prefecture. These people came to Tsubame Sanjo. They brought the technology with them. Around Mount Yahiko, there is an abundance of copper, which they use as the raw material. And in this area, it's well forested, where they were able to use the wood to make the charcoal for the furnaces in order to create the forges. With these three things, that's how Tsubame Sanjo quite consciously made itself a metalworking center. The Shinano River that caused them all the problems ended up being the best way for them to trade with the rest of the country. They were able to ship what they made out. What they made, first of all, were nails for architecture. They went all the way down to Edo, which is present-day Tokyo. Of course, this was the largest city in the world at the time, and we're talking the 1600s. It was the time of the beginning of the Great Peace of the Edo period, where there was no interfighting within the country. A huge growth of building within the city in both Tokyo and in Osaka, so Edo and Osaka. And of course, to build all these wooden buildings, you need nails to put them together. And so that's how Tsubame Sanjo established itself. Moving on to the very end here, this is about that. This is a picture of a Shinto shrine in Niigata called Yahiko Shrine. Yahiko, as you remember, it's just at the foot of the mountain, Yahiko. This is important for the people of Tsubame Sanjo for a number of reasons. First of all, Niigata, the prefecture of Niigata itself, is the prefecture in Japan with the most number of Shinto shrines. And this is the most important Shinto shrine in Niigata. A shrine is a place where you venerate the kami of the Shinto belief. Kami are like spirits. I don't want to say spirits, I don't want to say gods, I don't want to say deities, I don't want to say divinities. They're kami. They inhabit you, me, a place, the rocks, the trees, things. Everything has a kami of some kind, and it's all interlinked. The kami, the particular kami, who is venerated in this shrine, Yahiko, is called Ame no Kaguyama no Mikoto, an important kami who is said to have, from the west, arrived in Niigata and brought the people who were living there the knowledge of agriculture through making tools, how to make salt, and basically how to support themselves. Ame no Kageyama no Mikoto is the kami of monozukuri, of craftsmanship. And all the craftsmen from Tsubame Sanjo go here to pray for safety at work, but probably mostly to sell what they make as much as possible. When I came with the designer of this exhibition, who is a spread, as I was telling you earlier, he made everybody pray at the end here. I don't think I feel I can do that, but when you go past, make a wish. Please come through. Just one point before we come in. Please come in. Please come in. I mentioned the nail. If you could look at this podium here. This podium here. This shows you the nail. This is a Japanese nail, a wakugi. This was the first item that was made in Tsubame Sanjo and is still made today. It's the type of nail that supports the making of buildings like the shrine, for example, of Yahiko. It's extraordinarily strong. The way that it's forged means that it doesn't rust as easily. The more times you forge it, the more you heat it, you beat it, you heat it, you beat it, you heat it, you beat it. You'll know that it's square. You notice it's square. It's extremely durable. The square cross-section means that it fits very tightly into wood, which ensures that the wood is stronger, the connection is stronger, and there seems to be no reason to really change its style. This is compared here with a tent peg, which is made in present day in Tsubame Sanjo from a company called Snow Peak. It's a tent peg which is extremely durable, extraordinarily hard. It will go through rock and asphalt, I am told. The reason we paired these together is that there is nothing different in the technology that has made this from 400 years ago to this, to the present day. Let's go into the middle. If you look at this wall that I'm facing, you'll see that we have a timeline of metal production in Tsubame Sanjo, starting off 400 years ago with Japanese nails that we've just looked at, all the way through to the present day with this number of metal working products that completely dominate the industrial landscape of Tsubame Sanjo. All of these are made in Tsubame Sanjo. So the nails are still made right the way through to the dyes, the metal tapware, the metal homeware that you see today as well. Next to the Japanese nails, you will see that the next thing that was made were agricultural tools, such as hoes and sickles. And we're very lucky to have Kondo-san. We're very lucky to have Kondo-san, who comes from this particular forge of making of hoes. His father was with us about a month ago, a fantastic character. His son has come now to help at the end of the exhibition, but I'm going to ask Kondo-san to say a little bit about the hose. I'll endeavour to interpret. Bear with us. If you have any questions, please do. Kondo-san, Hello. 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 どうぞ。僕は通訳します。
私は近藤製作所の近藤隆彦と申します。よろしくお願いします。
I'm Kondo from the Kondo workshop. どうぞ。何か説明しますか。私がします。どんな感じ？どうぞ。He's asking me how should he do it. Shall I? 僕は説明しましょうか。いろいろ。これが、let me show you something. When I went to his workshop in Sanjo, あるんですよね。なんかありますか？これをごめんなさい。今度さんもあるんですよね。There's a picture in here that will help you, which will help explain why we've set these hose like this. じゃなくて、これ工場の風景がありますね。まあ、1枚ね。 Is it in the old one? So just to say, I will show you the picture in a minute. This is laid out in exactly the same way that I found Kondo-san's workshop. His wall at the end is covered in these hose. Hose are extremely interesting in the way that they're not designed in a way that you have a blueprint in which you cover it from. They are made in the way that somebody will bring their hoe, give it to you, and say, can you really make this for me, please? And they are made in exactly the same way that all the other blades are, in the fact that they are two metals put together. They are a iron body with a steel blade. And these, it's common to all the blades that you will see here. Thank you. This is a picture of his.
これは会社に飾ってあるクワ。
So these are the hose that are on the wall of his workshop.
それを今回のジャパンハウスで、再現飾ってもらうことになりまして。
So seeing that, we wanted to try and replicate a way that it's done from here. So that white background is in fact the glare of the snow. I mean, the snow is up to here in Niigata. It's the snow dumps itself on Niigata right now as soon as it comes off the Japan Sea. The reason being that it's made in this way is because it's a notional map of Japan, in fact. So his father puts them up like this, that up here are the hose which are made for use in places like Hokkaido and Aomori. You go all the way down here, through Kanto, through Tokyo, through here to Kansai, to Osaka, all the way through down to the southwest here in Kyushu, where the hose are used for agriculture. It's a notional map of Japan so that he knows exactly which hoe is for what purpose and from where. わかりますか？どこの？
どこの？
お父さんみたいな。すぐわかりますか？
これは福島。
So this one is from Fukushima, for example. これは？
これはわかります。
お父さんじゃないんですね。His dad knows them all off by heart.
これは新潟。
Niigata. That's from Niigata. That's from where you are.
これ石川。
That's from Ishikawa Prefecture. You may know Kanazawa, for example.
で、
どうぞ。
このクワとこれが一番最初のクワ。
So those two that he's just pointed to. もう一度お願いします。Those two are the original templates for hose.
オール、ハンドメイド。溶接とか使ってない。今は場所は溶接で止めるんですけど、これとこれは一枚の板をこういう形に。
Okay, so he's saying that the original kind of hoe was made out of one piece of metal. The ones these days are forged together, are welded together in a way that you put more than one piece together. Those two are actually just made out of one single piece. So even this bit here has been hammered out of the or like the kettle behind you, if you look as well. So, and each one, there are three types, as you can see. There is this kind, which is for soft soil. There is this kind, which is really for sandier soil. And there are these harder ones, which are for stony soil. You can see, this one's much easier to see, iron and steel. Some of them are stainless steel, aren't they? Stainless no mono wa arimasu ka? これは stainless. ですか?
これはステンレス。
So this is a stainless steel body with a carbon steel blade.
これは鋼。
Each one of them, even if you can't see the difference, each one does have a blade attached to it.
Can I just ask?
Yes.
Why is there a topographical difference between the homes? Why do they have a different type?
Because there are different soils.
Just for the soil?
It's a great question because it's all to do with function. It's all to do with the functionality of the piece. It's not to do with what it looks like. It's not to do with. It's to do with how you feel using it and how best suits you. They're not necessarily regional either. A community or a family might have their own preferred one. And a lot of the work that the Kondo workshop does at the moment is actually repairing them. So the body is stable and strong, and it's the blade that gets cut away because it's the hard metal. A lot of the work that they do is replacing the blade and refitting the hoe so that it can be continued to be used. でしょうね。よろしいでしょうか。何かありますか？何か言いたいことが。
これだけ種類が増えたのは、昔日本には鍛冶屋さんがいっぱいいて、その鍛冶屋さんが近くにいた農家農家さんの要望を聞いて、ほぼそのお客さんのために作られた形なんで、形は違えど使う用途は全て一緒。ただ作った人と使ってた人が違ったんで、種類が増えて、で鍛冶屋さんがみんな辞めてったんで、やってるまだ近藤製作所に。
そうですね。燕三条の分かりました。そうですね。So he's explaining that the reason that they're all different shapes and sizes is because it's to do with the function. It's all to do with how you want to use it. The reason that he makes all of these in their workshop is because there used to be blacksmiths all over Japan, and of course they're disappearing. But because of Tsubame Sanjo's strong metalworking connection, they are able to, they're just becoming stronger, that's all. And so people from all over Japan come to Tsubame Sanjo to ask for their particular hoe to be made, which is why he's got so many different kinds.
Form is led purely by function here, so if it's suitable, it does the job well. Does he admit to seeing beauty that we see in this, aesthetic beauty? Or does that not come into it?
木の美を見ますか？その美しさを見ますか？この中で。彼の質問は全ては機能があるんですよね。だから我々が僕が見せたのはね、この木の美があるんですね。その美しさがあるんですね。その美しさを見ますか？って彼の質問なんですけど。
正直例えばこういう昔のものを見ると自分も美を今のどうしても機械化になって毎日作業をして見てるんで美っていう感覚はあんまないんです。
Not really is your answer. He thinks the older ones are quite beautiful, but he says because he's touching them all the time and making them, he doesn't see the beauty in it so much. But I think that's exactly what I wanted to do here, is to make sure that people could see that they are in fact really quite beautiful. One interesting story I think about talking to his father when I was there was that I said he was so surprised as to why I was interested in these hoes. He said, I'm not a recognized traditional craft maker, like the chisel man, for example, Mr. Tasai. And I think that's exactly the point, that it happens completely organically and naturally, that these things, and I think that's the pure beauty of these, I think. The designer who we worked with to put this up, he thinks they look like earrings. And we've already had people asking them whether they're for sale.
Could we use them here?
Why not, eh, I think. Shall I just want to show you two more things before we go to... I just want to show you these because it's people have been interested in this when I show them. It doesn't look like very much. Tsubame Sanjo is two cities, really, Tsubame and Sanjo. Tsubame is known for its polishing workshops, and this is an unpolished piece. This is a polished piece. This buffer and this polishing paste make this particular polishing finish. This polished finish comes from this buffer and this polishing paste. This finish from this buffer and this polishing paste. And this finish, the maximum you can go, the mirror type light, they wouldn't allow us to show. It's a secret. So who knows what that is. In order to get this maximum shine, you can see it's like a mirror when you look inside. The other bit to this story is the fact that you may remember, it's almost old-fashioned, almost old story, that Apple made the iPod. And second generation and third generation iPods had this back and this finish, which was made in Kobayashi Kengyo in Tsubame. It's a small little factory with family-led. And I asked Apple whether we could show and iPods. And they said no, because I suppose they didn't want to show the fact that this was linked to this particular place. But if you have a look carefully, you can see it's a complete mirror. It's absolutely perfection. One more thing before we go to the knives. I want you to look at these up here. These are wagamisori. They are razors. You may remember the Edo period. Men used to shave their heads here. These are the razors that would do that. Or if you were a monk, shave your head. These are handmade razors, just like the blades that of Kondo-san's period, for example. It's an iron base with a carbon steel blade. You fuse them together. You forge them together to make the actual blade itself. You forge it, and then you polish it, and that's the final end. So from material right through the process to the end. These are made by one man called Mizuuchi-san. He's in a single occupancy workshop. He's nearly 80 years old, and he's on his own, and there is no apprentice. And I suppose that's one story that I wanted to try and show here. Does that matter? In a way, I mean, your reaction just then as well, it's quite emotional, isn't it, to know that there is nobody else to take this on. If he dies, then it may die with him. He's the only person. And I was talking to him, it takes about a day, 1 day for one piece. So he can make one in a day. It's not as if there isn't any demand. If you want to buy one, there's a 3-year waiting list. So why? I think it throws up all sorts of questions as to what we do about this. If there's anybody here who wants to become an apprentice in Tsubame Sanjo and make razors, then I think maybe think about it, please do. But talking to him as well, he said it's like a marriage. You know, it depends on whether they get on with each other as well. So it's not as if there's nobody wanting to do it or he doesn't want anybody. It just the time needs to be right for in order to happen. So I think. But do we need them? I don't know.
May I say something?
Please.
I have recently visited few craftsmen in Japan, mostly people who specialize in knives, grinding, sharpening, forging stuff, and I asked that. And I visit a guy whose name is Shinichi Tahara. He's like grinding and sharpening knives since 55 years, and he has sons. Even his sons don't want to be apprentices. That's very strange. And he says that this craftsmanship is very fading. Which is quite sad.
It's dirty, it's smelly, it's tough. It's a long day. I mean, I asked Mizuuchi-san as well. One would think that the sharpening bit was the bit that you like, because you have to spend a lot of time sharpening it to make, you can cut a hair just by touching it. It's the finest blade you can get. But he said that his heart lies in the forging part of it. That it's the first 4 steps that you see here is what he enjoys the most. The actual being a blacksmith. So I suppose there are all sorts of reasons as to why you would or wouldn't want to do something like this. Your point, particularly about Mr. Hinoura, a son and father and son workshop who make nata. These are like machetes, yes, or bill hooks for cutting down wood in trees. The father, Hinoura-san, tried to get his son in order to continue the business and persuaded him to do it, saying that in 10 years he'd have enough money to buy his own house. He's been doing it now for 10 years, the son, and said that was a complete lie. It was the only way to be able to get me to do it, and he doesn't. But he has been persuaded to carry on the business.
But wasn't it the same with the Hinoura himself? That at the beginning he didn't want to do that. Obviously he became an apprentice of his father, and now he loves it. I think that it was exactly the same as with his son right now. So that
little white lie about the house made it work, didn't it? Yes, exactly. Yes. Do we know anything about surgery and cutting? Well, in Japan. In Japan? I don't know. Though we did have 2 surgeons come specifically from Imperial College to meet our chisel making craftsmen, Mr. Tasai, and they were here. One of them was here for over an hour, and there were two of them. The other one stayed up to 4, talking to him just about chisels and about how they are made and how that transfers into how they are used. They were very interested in the way that making was also had a heart, or it was that could be transferred into the idea of using it. Mr. Tasai doesn't use gloves, for example, when he forges, so he's covered in burns, and it's all to do with so he can feel when it's hot enough. Not when it's hot enough, but when he can feel. There's no glove to stop him feeling when the reaction that the metal makes when it's quenched or when it's heated. And that was very similar to the way that the surgeons were talking as well. So many questions in there, aren't there? Prosthetics, that's our exhibition come January. Come and see that. We have an engineering from Tokyo University, whereby there are people who are looking into robotics and also design for prosthetics as well. That's another thing. Maybe there was one conversation that came up with the surgeons was about sharpening. But it seems that sharpening was a thing that happened with surgical instruments before the war in this country.
We use disposable parts.
Disposable wasn't the thing then. Mr. Tasai, for example, sharpens the chisels of carpenters who he's sold them to, and they come to him, and maybe on a Friday, he'll get them on a Friday, sharpen them on a Saturday, return them on a Sunday, so they can start working again on a Monday. So, and there was a similarity, a synchronicity there with surgeons, definitely.
Just curious, because part of the surgeons were well known, and that's where surgeons started. With Elizabethan age, yes, here, because one was in Britain, when somebody
These are for cutting hair, not for skin, that much I do know. Should we go over to the knife man, which is for cutting skin? But maybe not human skin. So this is Mr. Sonnen, who is...
じゃあ皆さんこちらはい、この包丁を作ってる、田中の曽根と申します。よろしくお願いします。
My name is Sonnen, and I make these. I'm from the company that makes these knives, Tadafusa.
こういういろんな包丁を作ってますが、うちはですね、この、上段の、上の こちらちょっと見ていただくと分かるんですけど、
If you have a look, you'll see that you've got a key inside your booklet of the knives.
上の2段がですね、
The top 2 rows
漁業用の包丁になってまして、
are used in the fishing industry.
でこういう包丁を作るところから、会社はスタートしてます。
So that's how my company started.
もともとがですね、こういったものを作っていて、その後下のこういう農業の収穫用とか、こういったものを作って、で今は、
So on the third line down, you get to knives which are used in agriculture, for example.
今は、主流なものっていうとほとんどが家庭用の、包丁にはなっているんですが、上の画像とかでも鍛造という、自由に、スプリングハンマーを使って、包丁の形を作れるという技術があるので、いまだにこういったものも、全部作っています。
So most of the knives that he makes now are for home use, and the way that they're made is using a spring hammer, a big machine, a big spring hammer that comes down for the majority of the blades that are created.
特徴的なものとしてはですね、こういう鎌、ここに昆布の鎌、シウイですね。
どっち？
一番上ですね。
So that curved one at the right at the very top is a sickle for cutting seaweed, kombu, kelp.
カッティングじゃなくて、こう船の上から昆布を収穫する。ここに長い木がつくんですよ。ここのエビ。
でも切るでしょ？
いや切るんじゃない。船の中からすくい上げる。
So he's saying that pulling them up. But you have to cut it in order to bring it up, don't you? So it's from a boat pulling it up from the from the sea.
なので、包丁ではないです。
It's not a knife.
で、まあ、後ろのこの2番目もそうなんですけど、これは僕らで言うと、昆布を削るプレーン、カンナ
So this, the one underneath it is a plane for scraping kelp.
そういう、漁業に関するものの、包丁以外のものも、作ってきました。どうぞ。過去形、作ってきましたけど作ってます。
So, so he makes these. These are all related to fishing industry.
3章はですね、そういう問屋さんがいて、僕らの販売店ですね、そういったところが、漁業に関するもの全部正しさに任せれば何でもできるっていう、そういうお話をいただいて、いろんなものを作ってまいりました。
So this is a familiar story I'm hearing here. That even though they started off making these particular knives, you can ask them to make absolutely anything, and they will do.
ですので、ここにあるのは本当一例というかですね、ここに今40種類ぐらいあるんですけど、うちはですね、大体今800種類ぐらい、包丁が。
So there's only about 40 are shown here, but they make up to 800 kinds of knives.
もちろん、素材の違いとか、長さの違いとか、そういういろんなのはあるんですけど、本当にいろんなものを、鍛造という技術を使って、作ってまいりました。
They make all sorts.
でですね、ちょっと面白いなっていうのが、ここに4種類、図を見ていただくと分かるんですけど、イール、うなぎ、これが東京です。東京、大阪、京都、名古屋。
So there's eel knives from different parts of Japan. Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya.
あとですね、このさっきちょっと上でお話しさせてもらったんですけど、刺身を切るのに、今この2つ柳刃、タコ引きという。
So those two knives there are for sashimi, for cutting raw fish. One is yanagiba.
柳の葉っぱに似ているので柳葉という。
So it looks like a willow leaf. That's why it's called that shape.
でこのタコ引きはタコ引きって言ってて、ここにオクトパスって書いてあるんですけど、それも僕の間違いです。オクトパスじゃないです。これも刺身です。タコだけではなくて、東京の方関東で使う刺身包丁です。
So that one that's labelled as an octopus knife is not only just for octopus, but it's for all kinds of sashimi. Tokyo, no Tokyo desu ka?
そうです。
In the area of Tokyo.
で、今ですね、日本の中で刺身包丁というと、海外とかで販売しているのもほとんどがこの柳刃という形になっています。
So most of the knives that are sold abroad from his factory are of this particular willow leaf shape.
形状がですね、こう刃がちょっとラウンドしているので、スッと引きやすい。
So they've got a slightly curved blade, which makes it easier to cut.
タコ引きの場合はストレートなので、スッと引かなければいけないんですね。なので今主流になってきたのは形の便利さっていうのもあるんですけど、やはりもともと日本はですね、大阪とか関西の方が、料理とかはですね、その歴史が長いというか、そういったのがあるので、関西の包丁が、日本の中でスタンダードになってます。
So then you're saying that in Osaka, that's an area that's particularly known. Osaka, Sakai で作られたもの。
そうです。なので堺が和包丁とかは多いんですよ。
Because of the area, because the area of Osaka is known for its cuisine. There's an area called Sakai in Osaka, which is known for making knives. And それが多いということ。
産地の話になるんですけど、
なんで大阪が出てきましたか。
産地と消費地って三条がなんでこれだけ多くのものを作っているかっていう、そういう話になるんですよ。三条は問屋さんが多いから、いろんなものを全国のものを作って、あそこの桑もそうです。桑全国に僕らが行けるわけではなくて、三条の問屋さんが全国に行って全国のものを 3畳だったらもっと作れるよ、上手に作れるよって言ってバリエーションが増えたんです。
So the reason that we're showing so many of these knives here is all to do with economics. So it's all to do with the fact that they've got very clever wholesalers in Tsubame Sanjo who go out to the rest of the country and bring back orders into Tsubame Sanjo.
なので、さっきの話で言うと、大阪みたいなその料理をいっぱい消費するところに普通は堺みたいな産地が生まれるんですよ。
So somewhere like Osaka, which is known for its particular cuisine, there is Sakai is a particular area of Osaka which makes knives for cuisine.
なので日本の産地っていうのは大体消費地産地っていうのがセット。燕三条は例外です。
So throughout Japan, you will find that these, they go together. If it's an area of a particular kind of cooking, then it will have a knife-making area that goes with it. Tsubame Sanjo is different in the fact that from all over the country they get orders.
だからこれだけ多くのものがありますし、多くのものに幅が広がっていったっていうのも全部問屋さん。
Just like the hose, for example, it's all to do with the wholesalers.
実際、忠房もですね、もともとは曲がり金、あそこにある、金尺を作ってました。あそこにある。取れないんですよね。
So originally Tadafusa made these carpenter's squares.
で、もともとはそういったのを作っていたんですが、僕の、おじいちゃんが、お前腕がいいから包丁作らないかって言われて作ったのがこういう。
Which is in fact his grandfather that started the business of making knives.
なのでうちのおじいちゃんはですね、もともと師匠がいません。包丁作りに関しては。普通は、師匠がいて独立してっていう風な形なんですけど、うちは独学で包丁を作っているので、ルールがないです。だから何でも作る。
So his grandfather started making knives without, because he didn't come from a knife-making family, they were kind of free to make whatever they wanted. That's why there are so many different kinds. Usually within a particular making tradition, you'd have a master who teaches an apprentice what to do, and in a way you're in a set value system. But in his grandfather's case, he wasn't the case.
普通は鍛冶屋さんとか、包丁メーカーの得意不得意っていうのがあるんですけど、今ここにあるのは全部和包丁ですけど、和と洋全部作る、会社っていうのは多分日本の中ではうちだけです。
So the only probably he says his is the only company in Japan which makes both Japanese style knives and non-Japanese style knives.
はい。そんな感じです。特に何かこれ何なんだっていうものがあれば。
So if you've got a question about which is which, for example, I know you had a question, didn't you?
I have two. Which is the preferred wood to use for handle or knife, if there is a preferred wood? And the second question is, on the second row of knives for fishing, what are the cut-off blades? Is that a specific shape for cutting out?
2つの質問があるんですね。1つのはハンドルの木の材料か何か
木は
お好みがありますか？一番使いやすいのはありますか？
日本のホウノキはホウノキなんですけどマグノリアを一番多く使ってます。でも
Magnolia is the most commonly
から使っ
used.
ているんですけど、やっぱり今は、マグノリアに近いポプラだったりとか、
Poplar?
あとこういったものはカシだったり、オークとか、そうですね。ここにあるのはほとんどがそうですね、マグノリアですね。
So Magnolia は硬い？柔らかい。
柔らかいです。
So I mean, essentially, handles are made of soft wood usually. So you'll find that in the chisels as well. The chisels are mostly made of oak. The handles are mostly made of white and red oak, for example. It's so that it's a softer wood.
プロの料理人さんが何十年も使っている包丁とかだともう指の跡がついたりしてます。
So in fact, a knife that's been used by a chef for years and years and years will probably take the shape of the hand that's using it.
もともとフォークはその水に強いそういうのがあるんですね。
It's also quite water repellent as well. It's strong against in water. でも2番目の質問がそうですね。こ
れはカニをさばく包丁なんですけど、頭はいらないと。 逆に危ないっていうので最初からもうカットしてっていうので昔からもう僕が、会社に入ってからは1回も作ってないです。多分これも30年前とか包丁ですね。
カニを
カニを
まあそうです
足を取ったりする。
足だけで
加工会社とかで使う。
じゃあこれが必要はないということですね。
はい。
So he's saying that I mean it's for cutting crabs, and that the point is not necessarily used for cutting off, as we just said, legs, for example. But he said he's never made that knife. In fact, that's knives over 30 years. でもう一つのカニの測るがあるんですね。ソネさんの一番上。
これですね。
そうですね。So this knife that he's pointing to there is also for crab. So you can see that it's concave on one side. That's not a blade. It's just a measure. So it's for measuring the size of a crab. If it's smaller than that, you throw it back into the sea.
そう2つの要素が。
And then on the other side, you've got ones that are big enough. You can cut them. There is a blade kinds of knives in being used there. Especially マグロのがあるんですよね。マグロの
解体ショーとかで使うものですね。解体マグロの胴。大きいマグロをこれ片っぽをもう一個一人タオルを巻いて2人で。
So that big knife is for cutting a tuna, and it needs two people to do it.
This is a small one.
これはスモールです。
Small.
いや、長いやつだと1メーター50センチとか。
Larger ones are about 1.5 meters in length.
それぐらいが結構多いですね。
Quick question about hand size. Is there an average that these are made for? We're told we're all getting taller and taller, and maybe our hands are getting bigger, our fingers longer. We eat well, we grow to 100 years of age. Is there a generic person one size?
But the way to grab a knife is different from the Western way because there is the pinch grip.
Yeah.
So when you are grabbing one of these knives, the pinch grip, you adjust your handle. That's it. So this is a very basic handle because you are pinching, you are grabbing the actual blade, not the handle itself.
Yeah.
So
Maybe that's the answer. What I find quite interesting are the curved ones, which are used for these are for those slightly curved ones are for obviously for cutting, for harvesting, for cutting out of the ground, not for cutting them on the chopping board, but for when you take them out of the ground.
これが白菜。
Yes.
We were wondering whether the Osaka eel knife it looks like a large carpentry marking knife. Is that an inspiration behind the sort of how it's developed from carpentry, considering what you were saying about how your business is moved on?
Which one is that one? Osaka no.
The
Osaka no
eel
unagi no. どっち？
これですね。
それは大工さんを使っているみたいな。What is it for a cut?
carpentry marking knife.
そう印をつける時の
The middle one looks like a big
刃物みたい
ornament.
で。それは影響がありますか？そのデザインの影響
It
があり
is used for grafting the plants. We use in bonsai to graft kuramasu grafted on white pine. Goyamasu, yeah.
切り出し大阪も京都も切り出しに近いんで、多分もともと切り出しやってたんだと思うんですよ。それからこっち多分どっちかの包丁とかもいろんなのがあった中で集約されて今の形があるので、実はこれもそんなに今使ってないみたいな。なんかこっちはなんかこれ江戸型が主流というか、江戸型と名古屋は最近作ってるんですけど、最近というか作ったことなんですけど、これはあんまりうちも作ったことなくて。
切り出しじゃないの？ごめんなさい。
切り出し、小刀
で、
小刀ってありました。この形です。これが切り出し小刀に近いんですけど、
何の機能は？
機能は木を削る。
はい。
それを
わかりました。So those shapes, yes, they are like they're like for shaving wood. It's true that there are knives that look like that for shaving wood or for cutting wood. You were talking about your bonsai there.
Maybe there were blades that were used for several things at the same time. So the ones on the outside, the two blades on the outside either side are more contemporary in their shapes, and so they've got a more of a distinct function. But maybe they were multi-purpose.
Convergent evolution.
Yeah, it's interesting considering the different kind of nuances in the materials and how it might feel with the eel or the wood, and it's quite interesting.
I know one person who used this kind of knife, like Kuidashi looking one, for cutting out the bamboo leaves, and he's making like quite amazing like shapes for decorating like the sushi plates and stuff like that, and it's really amazing. It's still using Kuidashi. People really.
It is a more controlled movement, because you hold the knife like this and then you move the wood piece like that, and you know where to stop. It gives more control to the hand, the shape of that.
刃物の世界で鍛冶屋さんが例えば、その地域で使ってたこれって言われるんですけど、僕らからしてみると作ったことなかったりするんで、そうするとアレンジをして作ったりとか、あとその産地によってはうちは片刃と両刃両方できるんで、何でもやるんですけど、両刃しかできない鍛冶屋さんだと出刃包丁なんかも両刃だったりするんですよ。なのでその、作る鍛冶屋さんによってまた形が変わったりとか、あとそこの鍛冶屋さんができる範囲での仕事をするっていうふうな形で、そこに形が集約されているっていうのがあるので、いろんな地域で実は違う用途で同じようなものがあるっていうのは結構あります。
出刃包丁の両刃と片刃の普通は何ですか？
普通は片刃なんです。
わかりました。So a bit of context there, just with it. So simply put, I think the world of making blades can get mixed up quite a lot. So there are areas blacksmiths will make what they are limited to. For example, a debobocho is made with a kataha, a blade which is like that, a straight blade and then an angle, for example. But then he said, has it got a specific word?
Chisel ground. Yeah, chisel ground.
Thank you, that word. And then you've also got one which is a ryoba, which is more of a equal or either side of a thing, which is not usually used for debobocho, for example, this cooking knife, kitchen knife. But he can make debabocho with this ryoba.
Yodeba.
Ryoba?
Yodeba.
Ryodeba.
用手刃とまたちょっと違うんですけど、
The most
Ryodeba is different,
symmetrical
you say.
debas.
Ryoba?
両刃の手刃、ダブルベベルの手刃っていうのも地方によって使うんです。
So there are different areas with this ryoba, not deba.
両刃で。
So
Can I ask, with the history and expertise of blade making, why isn't there a history of military sword making in the area? Is that because they weren't allowed to?
Mata. There's always a question about swords in this exhibition. As you can see, we don't have any. これは刃物を作るところなんですけれども、この燕三条の日本刀の歴史がありますか？なんでここにはないですか？
多分昔はいたんだと思うんですね。
まあ逆産地はあったんでしょうね。侍がいっぱいどこでもあったからね。
それこそ昔は新潟でもすっごい、でもその話をするとディープになるんですけど、話した方がいいですかね。
まあ僕は一つはね、多分その桑野の話と似てるんでしょうね。あちこちに鍛冶屋がいたんですよね、全国にね。
ちょっと違うんですよ。
違うけど。
戦争を日本の国があって、北に攻めていくわけですよ。で、中心地っていうのは鉄を取れるっていうのは島にしかなかったんですけど、でも戦争に行くのに鉄を持っていけない、武器も持っていけないっていうので、その地方で鉄を作るんですよ。で、鉄を作って、そこに生活拠点を作って、そこからまた戦争を仕掛けるんですよ。なので、いろんなところにたたらをした跡があるんですよ。 もちろんできるできないがあるんですけど、昔からそういうその中央集権国家が生まれる後に
長くなるかもしれない。
長くなるんですよ。
すみません。Without it going on for too long about swords, I mean, the fact is that Tsunahagane comes from, the iron ore comes from Shimane in western Japan. So that's really the source of it. So in order to make swords, you needed the raw material, and the raw material has to be taken to these different places. If you want to make swords, that's basically what happened. And there are areas, of course, which were basically fighting areas. People who wanted to fight their neighbours. This is the period, of course, before the Edo period. When the Edo period came along, there was peace for 250 years up until the middle of the 19th century, from the 1600s. So then that's how, I mean, that's not what he said, this is what I think now, so this is stop there. So the bit that I think is that during the Edo period, of course, you had this area of this time of peace, it's a flourishing of culture, and therefore, in a way, things like making swords and that, it kind of fossilized idea of what culture is. And so those were the different places, these different centers came from. So there are places which make swords, exactly, which are famous for making swords.
It's more of a tradition, the area done it.
It becomes tradition, yeah, in a way, I would say.
Can I just ask a slightly different question coming from another angle, which is, so this is your family business, and so in terms of apprenticeship, if you're a family member, how does that work? How do you learn these? And is there a specialism that you have chosen, or are you able to do 800 different things?
今弟子の話なんですけれども、タラフスの場合は弟子が言ったらなんか教える特徴がありますかとか、弟子になることができますかとか、なんか多分そのような説明をしている。
うちはですね、今26人会社全体に。
He has a company with 26 people.
職人が17人です。
So there are 70 craftspeople.
で、一人は実はオーストラリア人で。
And then one Australian.
で、来月フランス人が来ます。
Next month, a French person is coming.
うちはですね、何人かのプロフェッショナル全部できる人と、それとあと部分、特に 2,3 年だとやっぱり一つの部分をまず教えて、で下の子が入ってきたらまたその子は
ただ普通にこの子はこれができる子、この子。Okay. I remember him going to his factory now. So he's saying that there are a number of people who can do everything, but most people do things, specializing in certain areas of the process, of the making process. And I remember going. There's a chart on the wall with all the pictures of the people who are working there, and a graph underneath it. And this person can do this, and this. This person can do all of these. This person can do this. I think it's got something to do with skill and with safety about the machines, about what you can use. So.
But for you yourself, you run the business, but you also make.
社長です。
僕社長です。
社長ですね。社長で、それとも職人さんですか？
社長で職人です。
Yes, he's both. He's both the craftsperson
and you learned as when you were a child and around this, or you went and studied, or you apprenticed, or that kind of.
僕は25歳からこの世界入ってるので、ただ子供の頃からずっと見てました。だから子供の頃から学んでた。
So even though he looked at it, all of this from when he was a child, constantly, he didn't enter this world until he was 25. Thank you. 燕三条は海沿いですか？
海はまあ近いですかね。
It's near the sea-ish. It's not that near, to be honest. It's not that near. But I mean, you will see the map on the other side, actually. I mean, it's not that far, but it's not like Niigata City, which is on the sea, for example. Tsubame Sanjo is inland of it. It's more governed by the river than it is by the sea.
In Japan, is everyone more knife savvy? With 800 chainsaws, it makes us look like Does everybody respect what knife is for what? Never misuse it, never break the tip off it, pretend it's a screwdriver, go to the kitchen drawer, go, I need a knife, what for? Don't know, or something. Are people more into what their knives are for? Is there a proper knife culture? Whereas Yolanda, the knife culture means something else.
I would say, I don't want you to exoticize Japan too much either by saying that, you know, do Japanese people do this and do we do that? Because I think we're all individuals and we all use and respect things in different ways, whoever we are. I don't really want to perpetuate that myth that Japan is very, very different from us, to be honest. Demo, but I'll ask you a question. 彼の質問は、日本では刃物を使うのを尊敬してるんですか、刃物に。イギリス人はあんまり刃物はね、尊敬してないと思っていますね、彼は。
まあ、10年前とかはそういうふうに尊敬されない存在だったので、それが、僕は嫌で工場の祭典というイベントを作りました。
So in fact, he thinks that the reason that he was involved in the creation of the factory festival was because up until about 10 years ago, he was saying that Japanese people weren't having any respect for the way that they were using their knives. So that answers everybody's point, I think, doesn't it?
なので今は、オーストラリア人も来るし、フランスからも来るし、うちはこの10年ぐらいで社員が倍になってます。若い子たちが今働きに来てます。
So this isn't a more personal talk, I suppose, but you know, his efforts have been creating, you know, he's got somebody coming from Australia who works for him, somebody else is coming from France, you know, the business is growing, it's making more of the idea of knives, the creation of knives and the skill of making knives, so, you know, maybe there is going to be a growth in the respect towards knives. Sorry?
Is it just knives you put here? Do you put other things that you can make out of steel, or you can make out of steel?
Does he make other products other than knives?
Knives.
商品としては刃物以外のものを作りますか？
いや、包丁とナイフ。
I think what's interesting in this place is that most of the people are specializing in one particular thing.
Knives.
Knives. Well, no, knives, hose, chisel, not chisels, saws, files.
Home-based things as well. It's not just knives.
No, but like this,
You have hammers, you know.
they don't make them, they produce.
The factory doesn't make them.
I think to answer your question, maybe the people who make, actually maybe it'd be quite a good, we could go and see the magic metal. Should we go and see the magic metal? This will answer your question.
This guy's just talking about the knives that are here.
Everything. They make everything for everybody else. So there are lots of the industry within Tsubame Sanjo relies on the people who make all these bits and pieces, either for the machines that make the things that they're going to make, or there's all that. So actually, we're very lucky. You're very lucky that we have Mr. Takeda here, who is from Takeda Hanagata, the dye making company, who's made all of this and made this particular piece called Magic Metal, especially for this exhibition.
This is so cool.
Well, I don't know. I'm waiting for. I mean, he only came yesterday, so I don't know. We haven't rehearsed this as such, but we can try. 武田さんは説明しますか？私が説明して。どっち？私。はい。Saying I should. Okay. So this is 鉄で作られたんですか？ So it's made of iron, and it's an example of dye manufacturing as an example of the precision that you can achieve through die manufacturing. So dies are pressing out shapes from metal or cutting them out of metal, as you can see from behind here. This is an example to show how precise it can be. So it's one block of iron, and it's been the shapes that you can see, they say koba in Japanese, which means factory. They've been cut out using wire. So they've been cut out using a wire through here. But of course the piece that you cut out is then going to be too loose to put that in. So you have to make separately those inside parts out of another piece of iron. And then you fit them together, because there is only 3/1000th of a millimeter gap between the inside and the outside piece. And that cannot be done with a machine. That has to be done with the human eye and the hand in order to get that level of precision. And so you will see that when you push it in, it should disappear. I don't think so. I think it's going back to Japan. I wish we could.
Not the same.